Chapter 68. It's the best day of the year, and it's the worst day of the year. It's the hottest day of the year, and it's the coldest day of the year. It's January 1st. After almost a year in office, Warble is bored and unfulfilled. All the nation's problems have been solved, since Warble's plans and his execution of those plans are perfect, or so say the officially sanctioned reports. Any who claim otherwise are either incarcerated or sentenced to mental hospitals, where they are given medication to help them get their mind right again. At any rate, Warble feels there's nothing left for him to do. He feels restless. One night, after his bedtime ritual of beer and ginger snap cookies, Warble engages the vice president in an unofficial, off-the-record, off-the-cuff conversation. "Mary, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of this life. Being the president is for the birds. I can't even go into the bathroom without half a dozen spooks checking first to see if all the toilets have been flushed, the rolls freshly stocked with Bounty or Charmin or whatever, and the soft soap dispensers filled to the brim. They won't even let me drive my PTC anymore. They make me ride around in that stuffy old long white Cadillac with a bunch of doddering old men and dour sourpusses. I'm told when to wake up, where to go and when, what to say and not say, how to say it or not say it, what to wear, which medication to take and when, where to stand, when to smile, when to wave, when to inhale, when to exhale, and even what to watch on TV. You know they won't even let me watch the Packers on Sunday anymore? I have to watch those mangy old Redskins." "Washington," Warble says derisively. "First in war, first in peace, and last in the NFC East. And even then, I'm not safe. Last week, the score was tied with 3 minutes and 14 seconds to go, and when some country or other nuked its neighbor, my advisors insisted I switch from the game to CNN and get all gussied up for a press conference, just to say that I considered the bombing to be uncalled for, impolite, and an outright no-no. What kind of life is that? I feel like a marionette, a puppet, an automaton. There's no, what's the word? Spontaneity anymore. Mary, I long for the days when we were footloose and fancy-free without a care in the world. Don't you?" Mary doesn't respond, but is watching her husband closely. Warble is silent for a minute, reflecting. He walks over to the big picture window that overlooks the Washington Monument. He stares silently out into the night, his hands clasped behind his back. Warble seems to be in the process of making a pivotal decision. Finally, he turns around. "All right, then, I'll go to Dallas," he says, seemingly apropos of nothing. He looks Mary in the eyes and shrugs. "Sometime, anyway," Warble mumbles as if to himself. Then he walks up to Mary and takes her hand. He whispers, "I've got a secret to tell you, Mary." "What is it, Warble?" "Mary, do you remember when I took the oath of office? During the inauguration, it was raining cats and dogs. Not literally, as if Persians and Pekingese were falling out of the sky, because then people would have been getting hurt left and right, and I would have had to declare a national emergency. But it was raining a lot. Anyway, you remember how it was a cold day and I was wearing my trench coat? I had my left hand behind my back under my coat, while my right hand was up, promising to do who knows what? Who can pay attention to all that highfalutin legalese with all those cameras and lights, noise and confusion, hubbub and sirens? "Mary," Warble continues, leaning close to her and pressing his mouth against her ear, "with my left hand I was crossing my fingers. So my oath of office was not legitimate. It is null and void. And since your affairs, circumstance, and lot in life, in your dual role as my wife and vice president, are inextricably tied in with mine, intertwinkled, the validity of your office is also bogus." Mary doesn't know what to think of this revelation. Why would Warble hedge his bets like that, secretly crossing his fingers during his swearing-in ceremony? He's never been one to doubt the complete success of any of his previous ventures before. And what does all this mean? What is Warble leading up to? Warble doesn't keep her wondering long. "Mary, do you know what I'm driving at?" he asks. Mary is so stunned by what seems to be coming that all she can say in response is, and shakes her head no. We can annul our presidency and vice presidency forthwith. The chairman of the Way Mean Committee, Sons of Birch, can take over as president. He won't do as great a job as I have, of course, but I think he'll do in a pinch. And this certainly is a pinch and a pickle for the American public, because they're going to have to learn to live without my kind, gentle, and wise guidance and expert handling of matters. After listening to Warble air his grievances and frustrations, Mary realizes just how bored she is, too, with the staid, stiff, stagnant, stern, stultified life in Washington in general, and the White House in particular. She and Warble don't have to worry about money now. They have a steady income from the royalties from both the Cascading Updates and Bad Boys Behind Bars. Not only that, the McGorkles also have an unbelievably huge nest egg from the profits made while Biotrans was a going concern. Warble sinks down onto his wife's lap. Mary, let's go back to Economawalk, where we're free to be who we want to be. Back home? I can go back home to my begonias? Mary asks, her voice rising in anticipation. Yes, Warble grins. Back to your begonias. Oh, thank you, Warble, Mary says, wrapping her arms around her husband. Warble, let's go now. Let's not wait. I don't want to be late. It's almost planting season. Mary, there's one last thing I've got to do, and then we can go. Press my best trousers and my Sunday go-to-meeting shirt. Why, Warble? I want to record a press conference of myself, my farewell address, my adios concerto, you might call it. I want to preserve it on videotape for posterity. Warble disappears into the presidential and vice presidential suite and rummages frantically through the closet. After overturning half of the contents therein and throwing the other half out onto the floor, including his notebook, Warble locates his video camera. He smiles, pats it, and cradling it in his right arm like a halfback carrying a football, walks back into the Oval Office. After setting up the video camera on a tripod and flipping it on, Warble takes a seat in the easy chair in front of the fireplace. Warble clears his throat. He puffs up his chest, lifts his chin, and plasters a fake smile across his face. Ah, to Dallas with that, Warble mutters, exhaling and leaning back in the chair. Mrs. Vice President, will you please bring me some more beer and ginger snaps? Wordlessly, Mary disappears into the alcove where Warble keeps his stash of brew and cookies. Thank you, my dear, Warble says, receiving the plate of cookies in his left hand and the beer in his right. He takes a bite of cookie and a swallow of beer and then, with a wink to his wife and a nod to the camera, begins his farewell address. My fellow Americans, this is the last time I will speak to you from the White House. No, I don't have terminal cancer. No, I'm not about to be assassinated. No, I'm not about to commit suicide. Warble pauses and takes another bite of cookie and swig of beer. Friends, Warble continues, I'll make this short and sweet. I'm quitting. Another pause, another munch, and draw. Warble looks directly into the camera and explains. It's lonely at the top. Being the head honcho, the big cheese, the chief cook and bottle washer isn't all it's cracked up to be. I'm tired of the regimentation, sick of the constant scrutiny. In short, I can't say it any better than the great philosopher Johnny Paycheck did. Take this job and shove it. Warble smiles sweetly at the camera and hoists his beer to the viewers. Mary appears at the threshold. Warble, my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside the door. All right, dear, Warble says. With a vigor he hasn't felt in quite some time, he springs out of the chair, strides over to the video camera, and shuts it off. Warble takes one last long look around the Oval Office, where he has spent so much time these last several months. With a bounce in his step, Warble moves toward the door. Then, just before he reaches the threshold, Warble abruptly stops. He lifts his finger to his chin, hesitates a couple of seconds, and then whirls around and rushes back to the video camera. The outgoing president flips the camera back on and crouches down on his haunches in front of it. By the way, folks, I'm taking the vice president with me, so she will be unable to take over the helm as acting president. The chairman of the Way Mean Committee, you know his name, will take over immediately as acting president. Good night, and God bless. Warble and Mary slip out into the darkness. A few minutes later, Warble turns the key in the ignition of his beloved PT Cruiser. It roars to life. Warble lets out a whoop at the top of his lungs, a combination rebel yell and battle cry of freedom. Mary is smiling from ear to ear. She knows that things will be different now.